The 10th nanny had just stepped out of the Moretti estate when she threw her staff badge to the ground and shouted, "I quit. No one can take care of that child." In only 4 months, every single woman hired at a generous salary had walked away, one after another. Some lasted a few weeks, some only a few days, but the ending was always the same. They gave up. The 6-year-old daughter of Mafia boss Alessandro Moretti did not throw tantrums, did not rebel, did not do a single thing wrong. She was simply silent, a silence so heavy it was frightening, as though she had locked the entire world away inside herself from the day her mother died. And then, in a small roadside diner, an ordinary waitress appeared. She was not a child psychologist. She did not hold a degree in early childhood care. But through a single, simple gesture that no one had ever thought to try, she caused the little girl to open her heart for the first time, opening a healing journey that would change the fate of the entire family. The bell over the door of Josie's roadside had not yet stopped ringing when the woman in the linen blazer disappeared into the shimmering heat of the parking lot, her staff badge still lying face down in the gravel where she had thrown it. A minute passed. 2. The ceiling fans turned slow overhead. The smell of bacon grease and hot griddle and the sweetness of melting blueberry pie moved through the room the way it had every summer afternoon for 22 years. Alessandro Moretti stood in the doorway with his daughter's small hand in his, and the July light poured gold around them both, and he looked like a man who had run out of every option a man of his kind was supposed to have. Sophia Carter grabbed 2 menus off the counter. "Booth or counter?" she called across the tile. "Booth," he said. "Please, by the window." She led them past the pie case where the meringue was starting to weep in the heat. The glass of the window booth was warm to the touch. The parking lot outside shimmered like something half-dreamed. Emma slipped into the booth without being told. She folded her hands in her lap, prim as a churchgoer, and did not look up. Sophia did not sit across from her. She did not stand over her. She crouched down beside the table, so her eyes were level with the sugar caddy and not with the child, and she pulled the little chrome holder toward her. "I'm not going to make you order anything," she said, and she said it to the sugar packets, not to Emma. "Ordering's the worst. Somebody hands you a list and says, 'Pick right now. Pick in front of everybody.'" She started lining the packets up on the laminate. White, then brown, then the pink ones. "But I'll let you in on a secret. Josephine back there, she makes exactly one thing better than anybody in the whole state. And it's not on the menu, so nobody ever orders it. So she gets sad." The child's eyes, which had been counting the floor tiles, moved to the sugar. "You don't want Josephine to be sad," Sophia said. "It's summer. Sad's a winter thing." Across the table, the man went very still, the way a person goes still when they do not want to scare off a bird. "It's $silver pancakes," Sophia went on. "Little ones, tiny as buttons." She does a smiley face and blueberries, but only if you don't ask. She glanced at Emma. "Quick, light, 2 grown-up coffees and 1 secret. That okay?" Emma reached out one small finger and moved the pink packet to the front of the line. "Pink it is," Sophia said, and walked away before anyone could turn it into a bigger thing than it was. Behind the pass-through, Josephine May was leaning on the steel counter with her arms crossed. 60 years old, 22 years running the diner off the county road. She could read a dining room the way a fortune teller reads a palm. "You're making me make the button pancakes," Josephine said. It was not a question. "For the kid," Sophia said. She clipped the ticket to the wheel. The pancakes came out tiny and golden, stacked like coins, a shy blueberry face in the middle. Sophia slid the plate down without ceremony. Emma picked up one the size of a quarter, considered it, and ate it, then another. She did not smile, but the line of her small shoulders came down half an inch. The man put his hand over his mouth. When he took it away, his eyes were too bright. "She hasn't eaten in front of anyone but me in 2 months, he said quietly. "What did you do? Just now? With the sugar?" "Nothing. I didn't ask her for anything. Everybody's been asking her for things. Smile, talk, eat, be okay. That's a lot of asking for somebody that small. Sometimes you just have to sit next to a person and stack sugar till they decide you're not going to grab at them." He put out his hand across the table, over his daughter's plate, like the introduction could not wait. "Alessandro Moretti." She shook it. His hand was cold from the air conditioning. Hers was warm from the coffee pot. "Sophia Carter." Booth 4 called for a check. She excused herself, felt his eyes on her every step of the way. Behind the pass-through, Josephine caught her elbow as she passed, floured fingers gentle at her sleeve. "Careful, honey," she said, low. "Men don't look at a woman like that just for the button pancakes." He came back the next morning, which she did not expect. He came back alone, which she expected even less. Sophia was wiping down the counter at the lull between the breakfast rush and the lunch crowd. The fans turning slow overhead, the door propped open to let in the smell of hot asphalt and cut grass from the field across the road. 10 o'clock in the morning, the quiet stretch when the coffee got a chance to breathe and Josephine got a chance to sit for the first time since 4. The little radio behind the register was playing a ball game nobody was listening to, and there in the doorway, framed in white July light, stood Alessandro Moretti in a different heavy suit, a leather folder held against his chest like a shield. "Miss Carter, we open for lunch in 20 minutes, she said, without stopping her wipe. "Coffee's fresh if you want to wait." He did not sit. He crossed the tile in his polished shoes and stood on the customer side of the counter, opposite her. And up close in the daylight she could see he had not slept, the kind of not sleeping that lives under the eyes and cannot be hidden by money. "Emma ate this morning," he said. "Eggs." She pointed at the carton, and she ate them. "My housekeeper nearly fainted." "Good. Eggs are a good sign." Sophia wrung the rag into the bucket. "What do you want, Mr. Moretti?" "Alessandro." He set the leather folder on the counter and opened it, and Sophia felt her stomach drop before she had read a single word, because she knew the shape of what was coming, the way you know the shape of weather. A single page, typed, dense at the top with paragraphs, a signature line at the bottom, a number printed halfway down, with more zeros on it than she had ever seen on a paper that had anything to do with her. "I'd like to offer you a position," he said. "My daughter's caretaker. Live in. There's a residence on the estate, a vehicle, full medical, whatever you need." The number sat there in the space between them. It was... Sophia did the math fast, more than she had made in the last 3 years stacked together, and it landed in her chest like an insult. She slid the paper back across the counter. "Careful. The way you return something you do not want to leave your fingerprints on. You can't pay me for what I did. It's not a service. I felt sorry for a sad little girl, and I knew a trick, that's all." Alessandro did not raise his voice. He did not do anything with his face at all except go very slightly still, and he folded the paper closed with the same slow care she had used to hand it back. "You think I'm insulting you," he said. "I'm not. I'm respecting you enough to skip the part where I pretend I have a better option than to ask." "Respect the part that's a person," Sophia said, "not the price on it." From the pass-through, Josephine leaned on her elbow, one hand on her hip, not bothering to hide that she was listening, a dish towel over her shoulder like a referee's flag. Alessandro looked at Sophia a long moment. The boardroom went down half an inch behind his eyes, and something younger came up under it. "If it isn't the money," he said, "then what?" She opened her mouth and closed it again, because the honest answer was that she did not know. She knew what she was refusing. She did not know yet what she was choosing instead. And a woman who has lived 11 years by the rule of do not reach does not build the words for reach in the middle of a shift. The bell over the door rang. All 3 of them turned, and there in the doorway, alone, with the July light pouring gold around her, and a loose white ribbon coming undone in her small hand, stood Emma Moretti, 6 years old, in white sandals gone dusty from the parking lot she had just crossed by herself, and she was not looking at her father, and she was not looking at Josephine, and she was not looking at the number in the leather folder on the counter. She was looking straight at Sophia Carter. She had walked across the parking lot by herself. That was the thing Sophia would remember afterward. Not that the child was crying, because she was not crying. Not that her white sandals were dusty from the gravel, and her white dress had a smear of engine grime where she must have brushed the fender of the car climbing out, but that a girl who had not eaten in front of a stranger in 2 months, who had not chosen a single thing for herself in as long, had opened the door of a black sedan in the July heat with nobody's permission and walked, alone, across a strange parking lot into a strange diner, because she had decided something. Emma did not look at her father. She did not look at the leather folder, still sitting between the coffee pot and Josephine's elbow. She walked past all 3 of them, past the number with all its zeros, past the tile Sophia had just wiped, past the pie case sweating in the heat, and she stopped in front of Sophia and held up the ribbon. The whole diner went quiet. Even the radio seemed to hush. Sophia crouched down, slow, the way you approach something that might startle. "You want me to tie it back?" Emma nodded. One small nod. The first thing Sophia had ever seen the child ask for by choice. "Turn around then, button." Emma turned. Sophia's fingers moved from long practice. She had tied 100 aprons and 1,000 shoelaces in her life, and a bow on a summer ribbon was nothing at all except for the reason it was being tied. She made the loops a little bigger than the last person had. "There, summer bow, better than new." Emma reached up and touched it. Then, without looking, without a word, She turned around and closed her small fist around a handful of Sophia's apron, the way a much smaller child holds on, and would not let go. Nobody in the diner moved. Somewhere in the back, Josephine set down a pan very softly. Outside, a car door opened. Sal at the wheel of the sedan, coming toward the diner at a fast walk, one hand near the inside of his suit jacket, the way men in that line of work do without thinking. Alessandro caught his eye through the glass and raised one palm. Sal stopped, turned, went back to the car. Alessandro crouched down beside them, and his $1,000 trousers pressed into the diner grit, and Sophia had never seen a man that expensive get that low. "Throw out the contract," he said. "The number, the residence, all of it. Forget I said any of it. I'm not asking you to take a position. I'm asking you to help me. I've tried everything I know, and everything I know is wrong. And she walked across the parking lot for you." Josephine came out from behind the pass-through then. She wiped her hands on the towel over her shoulder and stopped 3 steps from Sophia, arms folded, hip cocked, and she looked down at the man in the funeral suit with the eye of a woman who had assessed 22 years of difficult customers and found most of them wanting. "You listen here," she said. "That girl works for you, not on you. She gets her own day off, her own door that locks. Nobody," and here her eyes went hard, "nobody talks down to her under your roof, ever. And she comes home to me every Sunday so I can see with my own eyes that she is still herself. Those are my terms. I'm the only one at this table putting terms on a person and not a price." "Done," Alessandro said, immediately. "I haven't said yes," Sophia said. Emma's fist tightened in her apron, and the child looked up at her once, just once, and in her small grave face was a question that had been sitting there for months without anyone letting her ask it out loud. "Are you going to leave? Like the others?" And Sophia Carter, who had a landlord and a double shift and 11 years of knowing better, looked down at that small hand holding on and heard herself say, 1 week, a trial, for her, not for the money, and no paper. Alessandro rose to his feet slowly, the way a man rises after a long negotiation he had not expected to win. He put out his hand to Josephine, and Josephine took it, because Josephine was a woman who kept her manners even when she was in charge of the room. Sal came in for the bags. The bell rang twice. Sophia watched Emma cross the hot gravel to the black sedan with her small hand in her father's, and she watched Sal open the rear door, and she watched the child climb up into a seat that probably cost what Sophia made in a month. And in the moment before the door swung shut behind Emma Moretti, Sophia Carter felt the floor of her whole careful life tilt, slowly, quietly, out from under her. The drive out to the Moretti estate was 40 minutes, and Sal took it slow, the way he took everything, one hand on the wheel and the other resting easy against his knee. He had offered Sophia the front seat and she had taken the back instead, because Emma was in the back, buckled into a seat that probably cost what Sophia paid for rent, looking out the tinted window at a world gone cool and dim through the glass. 6 inches. That was how much Emma moved on the leather. Sophia felt it before she looked down. The small shoulder was not quite touching her arm, but was close enough to be a decision. Emma did not look up when she did it. She just kept her face turned to the window and watched the summer slide past the cut hayfields, gone gold in the July heat, the shimmer standing in sheets above the road, a distant tractor drawing a slow line across a field, the cicadas so loud Sophia could hear them even through the sealed quiet of the car. Sophia did not comment on the 6 inches. Some things a child gave you, you took by not making a thing of them. The gate opened on its own. That was the first strangeness. 12 feet of black wrought iron sliding back into itself without a hand touching it, and the drive beyond it winding through trees old enough to have opinions. When the house came, it did not so much sit on the land as occupy it. Pale gray stone, tall windows, a fountain out front that ran clear and steady in the heat, as though water were nothing, were free, were the least of anyone's worries. Sophia looked at Emma in the rear view. "It's big," she said. "Bet it echoes something awful. Bet you could yell in there and hear yourself 3 times. The smallest flicker at the corner of Emma's mouth. Not a smile. The rumor of one. Inside, the air was so cold it raised the hair on Sophia's arms, and the front hall went up 2 stories to a ceiling painted with clouds, and somewhere a clock ticked with the deep patience of money. A woman in a pressed uniform met them just past the door. 55. Spine like a rule. Hair pulled back so tight, it did not so much lie against her scalp as adhere to it. She took the 2 duffel bags from Sal and looked at Sophia the way a person looks at weather coming in. "Elena," she said. "Housekeeper. Sophia Carter." Elena nodded once, brisk, and did not smile. "Miss Emma, would you like to show Miss Carter the sunroom? Or shall I take her up first? Emma pressed closer to Sophia's leg and did not answer. Very well. Elena's eyes came back to Sophia. Madame Moretti, Mr. Alessandro's mother requested that you be shown to the staff residence. Mr. Alessandro said the East Room. There's a difference. There's a difference, Sophia agreed. The look that passed between the two women said the rest. That somewhere above them, in the cool, tall rooms of this pale stone house, a quiet argument had already been had about exactly where the diner girl would sleep, and Alessandro had won it, and his mother had not forgotten. The East Room had a window that looked out over the back lawns, where sprinklers turned slow rainbows in the late light, and a swimming pool lay flat and turquoise as a stone in a ring, unswum. The bed was bigger than Sophia's whole kitchen back at the apartment. There was a private bathroom with a door that locked, just as Josephine had required. There was a small sitting area with a chair, the color of cream that Sophia was afraid to sit on. And on the desk, someone had left a folded card with her name on it in a slanted hand. The number on the contract still stands whenever you want it. A. M. She read it once and put it face down in a drawer. Then she heard the small sound of a child not breathing quite right in the doorway of another room, down the hall. She followed it. Emma was standing at the threshold of what could only be her own bedroom, a child's room done by someone with a catalog. All soft grays and a canopy bed and a shelf of toys still in their boxes, and she was not going in. Her small hand came up, found the hem of Sophia's borrowed cardigan, held on, and Sophia Carter, standing in the doorway of the loveliest child's room she had ever seen, understood at once that the first night had begun. Sophia crouched down at the threshold so she was not looming over the small hand in her cardigan. Is this your room? Button. No answer. Just the small fist tightening one more turn in the wool. Okay. You don't have to go in, but somebody's going to have to sleep in there at some point. Or the bed's going to think nobody loves it. Beds have feelings. Everybody knows that. You leave one empty too long, it gets dramatic. Sophia nodded at the canopy, which stood in the middle of the room like a small pale ship. Emma looked at it, then at Sophia. Then, without a word, she let go of the cardigan and stepped past the threshold. She crossed the pale rug in her sock feet, climbed up the low set of steps beside the bed, and sat down in the very center of the enormous mattress. Small as a coin in a collection plate, she patted the space beside her once, so Sophia went in and sat down. She did not talk much. She told one slow story about a stray cat that used to come to the back door of the diner and refused, on principle, to come inside, how Josephine had named it Customer because it only showed up at mealtimes and never tipped, and how Sophia had spent one whole winter putting bacon out on the step for it and pretending she was not doing anything of the kind. Somewhere in the middle of the bacon, Emma's eyes went heavy, and her breathing went long, and she tipped sideways very slowly until her head was on Sophia's knee, and one small hand crept up and found the hem of the cardigan again in her sleep. That was when Sophia saw it. On the nightstand, half tucked behind the small brass lamp, there was a framed photograph laid flat on its face. Sophia reached over, slow, so as not to move the sleeping child on her thigh, and set the picture upright. A woman laughed out of the frame at her. She was young, younger than Sophia by 3 or 4 years, maybe. Dark hair, sun-browned skin, caught mid-turn on what looked like a beach, one hand up against the brightness, the other resting on the round swell of a pregnant belly. She was wearing a white sundress that the wind had gotten hold of. She was beautiful in the careless way of people who have not yet learned that this is the picture that will end up being all anyone has of them. She was laughing at whoever held the camera. Whoever held the camera had loved her, and someone, recently, had laid her face down, so that no one had to meet her eyes. Sophia looked at the photograph, and then she looked at the child sleeping on her leg with the little furrow between her brows that Sophia was starting to think never quite went away, and the whole shape of things settled down into her chest like a stone into water. She did not know the whole of it, but she knew the shape, knew there had been a mother, knew she was not in this house, knew that the word for where she had gone was not a word anyone here said out loud, because Emma had stopped speaking, and Elena stepped soft, and there was a folded card in a drawer in the East Room, offering more money than a person of Sophia's kind was ever supposed to see. She lifted the photograph carefully, both hands, the way you handle a thing that has been through weather, and she set it back upright on the nightstand, facing the room, facing the bed, facing the small sleeping girl whose mother's face she had just returned to her without asking anyone. It seemed the smallest thing she could do, and possibly the wrongest, and she did it anyway. She did not hear the door open. She felt the change in the air first, a small draft, a stillness where there had not been one, the particular attention of another person entering a room without meaning to be seen entering it. Sophia turned her head, expecting Elena. It was not Elena. The woman in the doorway was perhaps 70 years old, in a dressing gown the color of old ivory, her white hair down for the night, which somehow made her more severe rather than less, the way a blade is more severe out of its sheath. She belonged to the cool dim inside of expensive places. She belonged to the pearls she was not wearing at this hour. She belonged to the deep patience of the clock down the hall. Her eyes went to the framed photograph on the nightstand, upright, facing the sleeping girl, and her eyes stayed there, and the look she gave the picture was the look a person gives a blade that has just been drawn from a sheath they had trusted to hold it. Vittoria Moretti had said only one thing. At the end, she had crossed the room in her ivory dressing gown, as though the floor might resent her weight, and she had looked down at the sleeping child on Sophia's knee, and she had looked at the photograph facing outward on the nightstand, and she had said, quietly, without heat, "You have been in this house 4 hours, Miss Carter. You do not know what that child can bear to look at, and what she cannot." And she had turned and gone back the way she came, her white hair down her back, one hand trailing the wall as though even she needed something to hold. But she had not taken the photograph down. That was the thing Sophia woke thinking about the next morning, that a woman who could have removed the frame in a single small motion had left it where Sophia had put it. There was information in that. There was a whole shape of information in that, and Sophia did not yet know how to read it. Breakfast was in the sunroom, which was a room made almost entirely of green light. Emma ate her eggs and, without ceremony, a small stack of button pancakes with a shy blueberry face in the middle. Elena had come by the kitchen the night before and stood at Sophia's shoulder with a pad of paper and copied the recipe out longhand, and now she pretended, with the dignity of a woman who had run kitchens for 30 years, that she had known how to make them all along. After breakfast, Sophia took Emma out to the garden. The lawn stretched away from the house in a green nobody would call natural, and at the center of it the fountain ran, steady, indifferent, throwing up a small rope of water into the July air. Emma dropped one small finger into the basin. The cold of the water surprised her. Sophia watched the little jump go through her, and then she slid her whole hand in, all the way to the wrist, and left it there. Across the lawn, at the far end of the swimming pool, a heron came down. It was enormous, close up, blue-gray, one-legged, offended by nothing at all, as though the pool and the estate and the July sun all belonged to it, and this was simply a routine inspection. Emma froze, her wet hand lifted from the basin. Her eyes went round, and then she laughed. It was one short, astonished sound, the kind of laugh a person makes when their body forgets itself for half a second, and her free hand flew to her own mouth as though to catch it, to press it back in, to unmake the noise before anyone had heard it. Sophia did not turn to look at her. She kept her eyes on the heron, which was rearranging one wing with the patience of a monarch. "That one's a regular," she said. "Bet he owns the place and he's just letting your father live here." Emma did not laugh again, but her small shoulders stayed down, and she watched the heron until it decided the inspection was complete and heaved itself into the air on wings the size of ironing boards. Sophia stored the laugh where she kept the good ones. On the way back to the house, they took the long way, through the west wing, and Sophia noticed for the first time what she would then be unable to unnotice. One door in that hallway was closed when all the others stood open. Elena appeared behind them so quietly Sophia startled. She had a stack of folded towels against her ribs. "That is not a room you need to concern yourself with, Miss Carter," she said, pleasantly, the way she might have said the linens are stored by weight. Sophia nodded and did not ask, but Emma stopped in front of the closed door. She looked at it for a long moment, and she reached out one small hand and placed her palm flat against the wood 3 seconds, no more, and drew it back. Then she walked on, without turning her head, as though nothing had happened at all. Alessandro came home after midnight. Sophia had been asleep in the east room and woke to the sound of a car door far off, and then a quieter sound closer in, the small mechanical murmur of a house running its systems at night. She went down for water because she was going down for water, and she found him in the kitchen at the far end. He had not sat down. His jacket was off. His tie was loose. He was standing at the counter eating cold pasta out of a container with a fork, one hand braced on the stone, like a man who had forgotten that food was a thing you sat down for. She stopped in the doorway. He looked up. His face, in that light, had not slept. "She laughed today," Sophia said. He went still with the fork halfway up. At the fountain, a heron landed, and it looked deeply offended, and she laughed. One short one. She caught it back, but it was a laugh. He set the fork down. He put both hands flat on the cold stone of the counter and bowed his head over them, and his shoulders moved once, hard. He did not lift his face for a long moment. When he did, it was wet, and he made no move to hide that from her, which surprised her more than anything else that had happened in this house yet. 11 months, he said. It's been 11 months since I heard that sound. Sophia crossed to the cupboard, found 2 glasses, and filled them at the tap because she needed her hands to have something to do. She set one in front of him. He took it. He did not drink it. He turned it slow between his fingers, and in the light from the under-cabinet fixture, in the moment before he lifted his eyes back to her, Sophia saw it. Beneath the open collar of his shirt, on a fine silver chain against his sternum, lay a wedding ring. It was small and gold and plainly a woman's. Its rounded band caught the light once as he moved, and disappeared again under the white cotton, and Sophia understood, all at once, that the man in the doorway of her diner yesterday, the man who had run out of nannies and something larger, had been wearing his wife around his neck for 11 months. The 3rd day, Sophia took the wooden building blocks down off the shelf in Emma's room, still in their box with the plastic wrap intact, and cracked the wrap with her thumbnail like a woman opening something at last. She spilled the blocks onto the pale rug and did not tell Emma what to do with them. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor and looked at them for a long time. Then, one at a time, she began to sort them by color. She pulled the pink ones out first and lined them up along her knee in a neat close row, and then the yellow ones, and then the blues and greens, and Sophia watched from the chair the color of cream and did not say a word about it, because she recognized the shape of the small hand on the small pink block and knew where she had seen it before. On a chrome caddy full of sugar packets, in a booth by a window, on the worst and best afternoon of her life so far. Alessandro was not in the house that 3rd night. Sophia asked Elena about it in the sunroom while Emma was upstairs washing her hands for supper, and Elena's answer was so short it made a statement of its own. Thursdays, Elena said. Mr. Alessandro is out on Thursdays. Out where? Elena did not look up from folding the napkin she was folding. Out. And that was all Sophia got. She read in the East Room until 10, a paperback she had brought from her apartment that she now could not remember buying. At 11, she went down the hall to check on Emma the way she had checked on her the 2 nights before. The bed was empty. Her heart went sideways in her chest. She kept her voice level, the way you do so a child will not catch the fear if the child is only around the corner. Emma? Button? The canopy was a pale ghost in the dark of the room. The bathroom stood open, unlit. The closet door hung ajar. The nightstand lamp was on, low. The framed photograph of the laughing woman on the beach faced outward the way Sophia had left it 2 nights ago. Emma? She went out into the hall. The stone floor was cold through her socks. She walked toward the west wing because she did not know where else to walk toward, past the painted clouds on the high ceiling, past the row of closed identical doors, past the deep, patient tick of the clock on the landing. At the very end of the west corridor, the door that had been closed every time Sophia had passed it stood open. A hand's breadth. No more. She would understand later how the child had done it, that Emma had gone up the back stairs and through a small connecting closet from the linen room, small enough only a small person could squeeze through, but she did not understand any of it, standing there in her socks in the cold hall. She only understood that the one closed door in the whole estate was open, and Emma was somewhere on the other side of it. Sophia pushed the door with 2 fingers. Moonlight fell through a tall window onto a rug that had been beautiful once, and was still, and in the middle of the rug, small and cross-legged and perfectly composed, sat Emma Moretti in her nightgown. Around her, spread out on the rug like something a tide had brought in, were a woman's things. A silk scarf, the color of persimmons. A pair of tortoiseshell reading glasses folded on top of a soft-spined paperback, with the corners bent from being loved. A hair comb of some pale bone. And in Emma's 2 small hands was an old telephone, its screen cracked in a diagonal line across one corner, glowing faintly in the dark. The child had, somehow, brought it back to life. A voice was coming out of it, tinny and warm. Say it for the camera, sweetheart. Say hi. Say hi to future Emma. Then the small, clear sound of a baby's gurgle. Then a woman's laugh, delighted, surprised. Then the voice again. Say it for the camera, sweetheart. Say hi. Then the laugh. Then the loop began again. Emma was not crying. Emma was sitting in the wreck of her mother's left-behind things, and her small face was turned up to the cracked screen, and her lips were moving soundlessly along with the voice as though she had memorized it, as though she had been memorizing it for a long time, as though she had spent the last 2 months practicing this in her head and only, tonight, had found the sound to practice against. Sophia stood in the doorway and did not breathe. Emma raised her eyes. In the dim, in the moonlight, In the strange holy hush of that room, the child looked at Sophia over the cracked glow in her hands, and her mouth began, slowly, to open. And in that same moment, the sweep of headlights passed across the west wall of the corridor behind Sophia. 3 hours early, the gate cameras would show it later, the black car coming up the drive when it was not supposed to be back until dawn. Alessandro Moretti was home. The word came out of Emma Moretti in the moonlight so quietly Sophia almost did not hear it. Mama. It was one syllable. It was the first word the child had spoken in 2 months, and she had spent it on a cracked screen glowing softly in her palms, aimed at a voice that could not answer her back. Behind Sophia, in the doorway, someone drew in a small, hard breath. Vittoria Moretti was standing in the hall in her ivory dressing gown, one hand at the base of her throat where pearls would have been at any other hour. Every color had left her face. Footsteps came up the stairs, slow, careful, each one set down with the weight of a man who already knew, somewhere below thought, that his house had gone wrong while he was out of it. Alessandro reached the landing, turned toward the west wing. Vittoria stepped into the open doorway and put herself in it. 70 years old, in silk, one hand still at her throat. Don't, she said. Alessandro, go back downstairs. Why is that door open, mother? She stepped back. He came in. He saw the open drawer, the scarf, the reading glasses, his daughter cross-legged on the rug with the cracked screen glowing between her 2 small hands, and the voice was still coming out of it because the voice was not going to stop coming out of it. Say hi to future. Alessandro made a sound that was not a word, the sound of a man stepping into water far colder than he had braced for. He crossed the rug in 3 steps. He took the phone out of Emma's hands. He did not do it roughly. He did not do it gently. He did it the fast, helpless way a person pulls a hot thing off a child. His thumb found the screen. The screen went dark, the voice cut off in the middle of a syllable. Say hi to Funo, Emma's voice, the second word, louder than the first. No, give it back. Mama. The tears came. All of them. 11 months of them. Kept in a small body that had not spent a single one of them where anyone could see. She was twisting on the rug, reaching past her own father for a screen he had shut off with the pad of his thumb. Alessandro went down on his knees, the dark phone clutched against his chest as though she might snatch it back. Emma, that isn't Mama. It isn't, give it back to her. Sophia's voice came out low and flat and warm. The voice she used at the diner when a line cook had scalded himself and needed to be talked through it before he could feel it. Give her back the phone. Alessandro, you're teaching her that the good thing gets grabbed away the second she finds it. From the doorway, Vittoria's voice came on a thread pulled almost through. If she has it, she will play it and play it. She will wear a groove into herself. That is exactly how we lost her the first time. Lost her the first time. Sophia said it back, quietly. Something cold walked up the back of her neck. The word that was not a word. The shape everyone in this house stepped around. Nobody answered her. Alessandro looked at the small reaching fingers. He looked at Sophia. He turned the phone over. He pressed the cracked screen until it woke. He found the loop the child had found. He set it going, soft, and he put the telephone back into Emma's open hands. She folded over it. Her whole small body curled around the warm glass. She pressed it to her ear the way an infant listens for a heartbeat. And the sobbing dropped into hiccups. And the hiccups dropped into nothing except the tinny voice against her cheek. Say hi. Say hi to future Emma. Some griefs stop the moment they are seen. Others only start there. Alessandro did not rise. He stayed on his knees on the rug. One hand went out slowly and rested on Emma's small back. The other went, without his thinking about it, to the silver chain against his sternum, and closed once, hard, around the gold ring hidden there. Inside his jacket pocket, a phone buzzed. Twice. He drew it out one-handed. He read the screen in the pale light of his wife's voice on a loop. Boss. Need to see you first thing. Something's come up. V. Victor Romano. He could not have said why, but his stomach went cold the moment his eyes touched Victor's initial. He put the phone back in his pocket without answering it. Emma did not go under until nearly 1 in the morning. Sophia sat on the rug in the west room with the child in her lap for the better part of an hour, and the cracked screen played its 40 seconds over and over between them, and one loop at a time the storm wore itself out. The voice was the mother's whole gift in the end. That careless laughing, say hi to future Emma, over and over, until Sophia had it by heart and could have said it along with her. When Emma finally slept, really slept, slack and heavy across Sophia's knee, Sophia carried her back down the long, cold corridor to the catalog gray bedroom. and laid her in the center of the enormous mattress with the phone face up and still playing on the pillow beside her cheek, and pulled the sheet up to her small shoulders. She did not turn the phone off. She had seen what turning it off did. Then she went down the back stairs to find water, because the house had gone quiet in that way houses go quiet before dawn. And she found Alessandro Moretti still standing in the kitchen at the far end, and it was clear he had not left it. The pasta container was still on the counter, untouched now. Outside the tall window, the lawn was coming up out of the dark. Dew stood in a silver skin on the grass. The first light was climbing above the tree line at the far end of the property, and the sprinklers had come on with their soft mechanical hiss, and the first rainbow of the morning was turning slow across the lawn where a heron had stood 2 mornings ago. Sophia poured them both coffee out of the pot he had made and not drunk. She set his down in front of him. He nodded, dumbly, and did not lift it. Then, in a voice that came out smaller and more broken than the boardroom voice she had heard from him yesterday, he told her about the 40 seconds. It was the only recording that existed of Kara's voice. The only one. Kara had not been a woman who liked cameras. There were photographs, a wedding video with music laid over it, home footage of Emma as a baby with laughter in the background but no one saying anything you could hold on to. That one clip, 40 seconds long, filmed on a summer afternoon Kara had made herself into a home movie for the daughter she was still learning the shape of, was all any of them had of her speaking voice in the world. Every time Emma played it, the speaker weakened. The screen cracked a little further. The battery drained faster. Someday the file was going to fail. One day soon the phone was going to fail. And when it did, the last 40 seconds of his wife would be gone, worn out by the one small person on earth who needed them most. So the choice, Alessandro said, had been an impossible one. Let the child listen to it until it was gone forever, and let her carry that guilt, or lock it away, and let her hate him, and keep the 40 seconds safe for the day she was old enough to bear them. Those had been the choices. Those had always been the choices. There was no pancake for it. That was why Vittoria had taken the phone in May. She had done it while Emma slept. She had done it because a doctor had told her to. And Emma had woken in the morning and not asked for it, and had not asked for anything, and had stopped speaking at all. Sophia listened. She set her cup down on the stone. Then she said, very simply, "You back it up." Alessandro looked up. "You have a family office, a technical staff, a vault. Nobody has copied it? Nobody has thought of it?" He went still. 11 months. A $400 an hour grief specialist. 2 therapists. A private consultant on childhood trauma with letters after her name. His mother. Himself. Nobody. No one. "You play it once," Sophia said, very carefully, "into something clean, and then you have it forever. 1,000 copies. In the cloud. In your vault. In whatever places men like you keep things you cannot afford to lose. Emma can wear the cracked one out to nothing. It won't matter. The real one is safe. You are not choosing between letting her hear it and keeping it safe. You set it up so it's both." Alessandro stared at her a long moment. He stared at her so long the sprinklers cycled through, and the light came up another shade, and the rainbow on the lawn went from rose to gold, and the mourning dove somewhere out beyond the fence got through its 5 low notes twice. "No one," he said, very quietly. "No one thought of it." He pressed the heel of his hand hard against one eye. When he took it away, he laughed. It was the broken kind, the kind with everything inside it, instead of nothing. "You have been here 3 days. It's not because I'm smart," Sophia said. "It's because I'm not bleeding. You can't read the label off the inside of a bottle. That's Josephine's saying. About men who cannot see what is killing their own restaurants." He laughed once more, a shorter one, and drank his coffee at last. By 6 in the morning he had called the head of his family office and the head of the technical division of his family office, and by 7 he had Kara's cracked phone in his hand on the leather blotter of the desk in her old study, waiting for the technician to come up the drive. He scrolled slowly through the files. He was going to select the source recording himself. He owed her that. He owed himself that. And then his thumb stopped. There was a folder on Kara's phone he had never seen before, lightly hidden, 4-digit passcode. He would have missed it in a scroll if he had not been scrolling on purpose, if he had not been looking at every single file. The folder was named, in plain small letters, 4A. Alessandro carried the phone to the far end of the house, to the room he did not go into anymore, which was the room that had been Kara's study. The books on the shelves were still the way she had left them, spines cracked at angles that told him what she had been reading in the weeks before she died. The desk lamp took a moment to remember it had a job. Sophia followed him in without being asked, because he had not asked her to leave, which she took as the same thing as being asked to stay. She stood at his shoulder with her arms folded across her ribs and did not touch anything. He picked up the desk phone. He did not dial the head of the technical division. He did not dial the family office. He dialed Dante Russo, not Victor Romano. Sophia noticed that. She did not know yet why she was noticing. Dante came up the drive 15 minutes later. 36 years old, ex-military, quiet in a way that suggested he had done his loud in another decade and had no need of it again. He came in with a laptop under his arm, the kind that had a company logo peeled off the lid, and he set it on Kara's desk without a word and opened it. He did not ask what he had been called for. He waited. Alessandro slid the cracked phone across the leather blotter. He tapped, once, on the folder named 4A, 4-digit passcode. He tried the date of Emma's birth. The phone shook its head. He tried the date of the wedding. The phone shook its head. He looked at the ceiling for a moment as though asking permission of a woman who could not give it, and typed in the date of the afternoon he had met his wife in a public swimming pool 8 summers ago. The folder opened. 3 video files. 3 dates. The earliest was 11 months ago and change. The latest was dated the day Kara had died. Alessandro tapped the first. A dashboard view. The camera had been braced against something on the passenger seat, angled up through the windshield. It was the South Docks. The old container yard where the containers stood, rusted and stacked and unused. A man in a dark coat was crossing the lot to meet another man in a dark coat. The first man turned his head to check the road behind him, and his face came clean into the frame for 1 full second. Victor Romano. The second file. Same location. 2 weeks later. 2 men in dark coats crossing the same lot. And this time the second man let his face come into the light also. Dante drew a breath through his teeth like a man biting something bitter. Vittorio Conti. The word landed on the desk between them like a stone dropped from a height. Conti. Alessandro said it out loud like a man testing whether he could still say it. Like a man who had not said the name in a very long time. "Who is Conti?" Sophia said. Dante looked at Alessandro before he answered. Alessandro nodded once. His face had gone somewhere Sophia had not seen it go yet. Somewhere behind the boardroom and behind the grief both. Some older room she had not been shown existed. "Rival family," Dante said. 20 years. The North Docks are ours. The South Docks are Conti's. There has been an understanding for as long as anyone remembers. He paused. The boss and the missus were married 7 months when Vittorio Conti had the boss's younger brother killed at a gas station on the county line. Sophia did not say anything. Alessandro tapped the third file. His hand was steady in the way a hand is steady when a man has stopped feeling it. The camera was closer now. It was inside a car, but Kara had turned it around to face herself. She was in the driver's seat. Her hair was pulled up. She had been crying earlier. Her eyes were still wet. Her voice was low, and it was the voice from the loop but grown up 10 years. Careful, adult. The voice of a woman who knew she was recording something she might not get another chance to say. "Alessandro, if you are watching this, it means I did not get the chance to tell you. Victor is selling us. I have been following him for 3 weeks. Today I have the last piece of it, the 4th meeting at the South Warehouse, June 14th. I could not let you not know. If something happens to me," she stopped, and her hand came up and touched the edge of the lens. "Look after Emma. And do not let him turn you into the thing he wants you to become. I love you." The recording ended. Sophia's hand had come up to her mouth without her giving it permission. Alessandro did not move. Dante looked once at the file's date, and looked once at Alessandro, and did not say the thing that all 3 of them had already understood. Because the date on the file was the same afternoon Cara Moretti had driven back from a public swimming pool through a summer rainstorm and never come home. Alessandro did not say anything. He reached down. He opened the top drawer of his wife's desk with the same slow care he might have used to lift a sleeping child. Inside was a Beretta, clean, chambered, wiped so recently the light showed no dust on the grip. She had put it there, Kara, in a drawer no one had opened in 11 months. In a drawer Alessandro had not known contained anything at all. He lifted the gun as a man lifts a thing that has been waiting for him. No one spoke for a long time. The desk lamp made its small, warm circle of light on the leather blotter. Outside the window, the sprinklers had cycled off, and the lawn was going flat and gold in the full morning sun. Somewhere on the far side of the house, a floor creaked as Elena moved about her mourning. A door opened and closed. The house went about being itself, indifferent to the room where 3 people sat looking at a Beretta on a woman's desk. Alessandro set the gun down. Carefully, the way he might have set down a rosary. "She was coming back from the public pool," he said. His voice had gone very level. There was rain. Summer rain, The kind that clears in 20 minutes. There is a curve on the road that runs around the reservoir. She did not come home. The car went off into the water. The police closed the file in 3 weeks. Accident. Boss. Dante said, softly. Who was the first officer on scene? Alessandro did not answer for a moment. Victor's crew, he said at last. Victor was the one who called it in. Victor was the one who identified the body. Victor was the one who stood next to me in the morgue and put a hand on my shoulder while I looked at her. Sophia felt her breath leave her chest and not come back for a beat and a half. She was remembering, without wanting to, all the small things in this house that had made no sense on their own and now snapped into a shape. Emma's small fist in her apron at the diner. Vittoria's hand at her bare throat where pearls should have been. The framed photograph laid face down beside a lamp. Everyone in this house had been carrying half a story, and Cara Moretti had died in the water before she could give the whole one to anyone but a hidden folder on a phone that ran out of battery 3 months later. She died because she was protecting me, Alessandro said. His voice had not raised. It had gone thinner. And I let Victor Romano hold my daughter when she was 3 years old. I have sat at his kitchen table every Sunday for 15 years. Sophia put her hand on his shoulder. Not to comfort him. She did not know how to comfort a man whose grief had just been rewritten in a language he had not known was possible. She put her hand on his shoulder to hold him in the chair, because the muscle under her palm was gathering itself the way a body gathers itself before it does something it cannot take back. Dante did not miss it. Dante did not miss anything. Boss. His voice was low and even. Boss, listen to me. If you kill Victor Romano today, Vittorio Conti will know within the hour that you know. War in the open. That is not what she wanted. Look at the video again if you have to. That is not what she wanted. Alessandro did not turn his head. You need him to think you don't know, Dante went on. At least a week. Long enough for me to move people. Long enough to lock down the shipping schedule. Long enough to get warrants for the phones and see who else is on his side. If he suspects for even 1 hour that you have seen these files, he runs. And if he runs to Conti. And Conti has him under armed protection by nightfall. You get 1 shot at this. Give me a week to make it a shot you cannot miss. The whole animal warmth had gone out of Alessandro's voice. A week, he said. Sophia said, without looking up. What about Emma? She said it very quietly, because now they were talking about her too. If Victor gets suspicious. If any of them do. And there is a soft place in your defense, this house. This child while you are out there running a masquerade at breakfast tables and shipping offices. She stopped. She did not have to finish it. Alessandro turned in the chair, and for the first time since she had met him, Sophia saw something in his face that looked like fear. Not the boardroom fear, not the widower fear. The other one, the one people carry only for people who cannot yet defend themselves. You will stay with Emma, he said. Elena will double the household detail. Sal at the estate around the clock. Dante reports to me twice a day. Nothing goes in and nothing goes out of this house that I do not know about. He stopped. Sophia. His voice went quiet in a different way now. If you want to go, he said. Now. Before any of this starts, I will understand. Sal will take you to Josephine's before noon, with 2 men, and we will keep them on you until this is finished. You can walk out of my life before it touches yours. You have not signed anything. You do not owe me anything. Say the word and it is done. Sophia did not answer at once. She thought about the child upstairs asleep with a cracked phone under her cheek and a bow undone in her hair. She thought about the way that small fist had closed in her apron in the diner and had not let go. She thought about her brother, Ethan, 10 years old, in the passenger seat of a car she had been driving too fast in the rain. She thought about the rule she had lived by for 11 years, the one about not holding on to anything and not letting anything hold on to her, because reaching was how the good things got grabbed away. She thought about the woman in the beach photograph, laughing, one hand on a rounded belly, who had recorded herself in a car for a man she loved and put a Beretta in a drawer he had never opened. Some women run when they hear the word blood. Others just tighten their grip on the child sleeping between them. I stay, Sophia said. Alessandro looked at her a long moment. He did not thank her. She would understand later that not thanking her was, in that moment, the truest thing he could have done. He reached across the desk and picked up the Beretta. He slid it into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. He stood. He straightened his cuffs the way a man straightens his cuffs when he has already begun the long walk back to a room he cannot afford to step wrong in. In the morning, he had breakfast reserved at the private table at Pharaoh's, the restaurant the Moretti family had owned since before he was born. Victor Romano was going to be sitting across from him. Victor Romano was going to order the same fried eggs and the same espresso and tell the same joke about his son's college roommate. Victor Romano was going to reach across the linen and clap him on the forearm at some point in the meal, the way he had clapped him on the forearm for 15 years, and Victor Romano was not going to know, for one more week, that the man sitting across from him already knew, exactly, who had killed Kara. Pharaoh's opened at 7 on Fridays, and by 1:30 the private table in the back corner already had 2 men at it. The rest of the restaurant was empty. It was always empty when the Morettis ate there. The staff came in early, put out the linen, laid the 2 settings, poured the water, and disappeared into the kitchen, and did not come back until they were called. Victor Romano was already deep into a story when Alessandro sat down. 42 years old, square face, hair going silver at the temples in that even distinguished way some men are lucky enough to age, and the easy smile of a man who had never once, in 15 years of friendship, needed to work at being liked. He was talking about his son, who had just been accepted at a school on the East Coast, and he was pretending to be annoyed about the tuition and pretending to be prouder than he could stand at the same time. And Alessandro laughed in the right places and reached across the linen and clapped him on the forearm and said all the things a godfather is supposed to say when a boy he has watched grow up gets in somewhere good. The small detail Victor did not notice was that Alessandro did not open the wine. 3 years of Friday breakfasts, 1 bottle of Sangiovese, 2 glasses, poured slow while they talked the week's business. It was ritual by now, the kind of thing neither of them thought about because they had stopped thinking about it. Alessandro had not thought about it either, until this morning, when he had known he could not sit across from the man and drink his wine. "Water for me," Alessandro said, when the waiter came. "Head's not right. I'll head home early after this." Victor nodded once and moved on to the next thing, and did not know it was the only sign he needed. Alessandro let the conversation drift down its usual rails for 20 minutes. He asked after Victor's wife. He complimented the son's school. He listened to a story about a shipment that had come in short at the North Docks and needed to be traced by Monday. He nodded, made notes on a napkin with a silver pen he had carried for 6 years, folded the napkin, put it in his breast pocket. Then, in the tone a man uses to remember something that has drifted up out of nowhere, he said, "You know, I was thinking last night. The afternoon Kara died. You were first to the scene. I never really thanked you properly for that." Victor's eyes moved. A single millimeter. Nobody would have caught it who was not looking for it. Alessandro was looking for it. Yes, I was in the area. I heard it come across the police band. Where were you? South Docks. I was going over a manifest. Alessandro nodded, slow, and let it sit for 1 heartbeat, and then let the smile back into his face, and reached for his water glass. "Well, thank you. For being there. For sitting with me at the morgue. I don't know if I ever said it properly." Victor's eyes glossed, right on cue. Perfect. The way a man's eyes gloss who has been in a room 15 years and has learned exactly what wet does when you need it. "Boss, it was the least. You know that. The eggs came. They ate them." Alessandro dropped him at his car in the parking lot at 9, embraced him briefly the way Italians embrace, and drove home in the back of the black sedan with his hand quiet on his knee. By the time he was back at the estate, Dante was already on it. 24-hour surveillance on Victor Romano. Full sweep of 3 weeks of calls, personal and business. Every visit, every meeting, every stop on his commute. By nightfall, Dante had a first report. 3 outgoing calls in the last 7 days from a burner Victor had used only once before this month. All 3 calls traced to a cell tower in the neighborhood of the Conti compound. Alessandro read the summary once, slid it face down in the drawer of Kara's desk, and went to the library at the far end of the house. Sophia found him there near midnight. Only the desk lamp was on. He had the framed wedding photograph in his hands, the one that had lived on the mantel for 8 years, and been taken down after the funeral and never put back up. He was looking at his wife's face as though it were a page in a book he was trying to memorize. Sophia brought coffee. She did not ask him anything. She set the cup down at his elbow, and stayed a moment because it seemed to her that a person alone in that particular light should not be entirely alone. "Have you ever wished," he said, without looking up, "that you knew a thing a day before you knew it, just one day, so you could have stopped it, every day for 11 years, Sophia said. He looked up at her then. He looked at her for a long, slow moment. He did not ask what she meant. He did not ask what the 11 years were. He simply held her gaze and let her know that he understood there was a story under her that she had not told him yet, and that he was not going to demand it, and that he would still be listening for it whenever she chose to say it. She left him with the coffee. Out beyond the tall windows, 400 meters down the drive on the far side of the estate wall, a car pulled off the shoulder into a stand of black locust trees and killed its headlights. The camera on the south pillar caught the shape of it. The camera could not read the plate. The plate had been sprayed dull and taped. Dante logged it. He time-stamped it. He filed it with the day's surveillance summary in the encrypted folder only he and Alessandro could open. He did not wake Alessandro to tell him. Not yet. 3 days passed, and Alessandro Moretti played the part of a man who did not know anything. He answered Victor's texts about the shipping schedule within the same hour he received them. He laughed at Victor's joke about the union rep who had lost his glasses again. He sat through a Sunday lunch at his mother's table with Victor and Victor's wife, and he complimented the panna cotta, and he asked after Victor's son's move-in date. He was perfect. He had always been perfect at this. It was the thing that had made him what he was. But Victor Romano had been a hunter for 30 years, and a hunter's instincts do not need a reason. Tuesday, 4 a.m, 3 fires started at the same time. The north warehouse where the Morettis kept nothing that mattered on paper and everything that mattered off of it. The private card room under the bar on Vine Street where 6 of the family's old accountants met twice a month. And Pharaoh's, the restaurant where Alessandro and Victor had eaten fried eggs 3 days earlier at the corner table with the linen napkins. All 3 at 4 sharp. All 3 professional. No accelerant a forensics team would find in the first sweep. No unbroken glass to make a witness. The Pharaoh's fire started in the kitchen. The kitchen where 2 waiters and a night cleaner slept upstairs, all 3 of whom got out because Dante had, on a hunch he could not have explained, told the Pharaoh's manager the night before to move the sleeping quarters to the front rooms. Dante called Alessandro at 4:11. Alessandro had not been asleep. By 6 a.m, Victor Romano was not at his house. His wife had woken at 3:30 to an empty pillow. She had not seen him leave. She had not heard the car. Their son was still at school. Dante's team pulled the traffic cameras. Victor's car had gone south on the highway at 3:15, toward the docks, toward Vittorio Conti. Alessandro called everyone in. By 9 that morning, the Moretti estate had stopped being a house and become a fortress. Sophia felt the change before she saw it. She came down the great staircase with Emma on her hip, because Emma had refused to be set down since the smell of smoke had come across the estate wall on the wind, and she found the great hall full of men she did not know. 6 of them in the entry alone, rifles across chests, not carried casually. The steel shutters had been lowered on the ground floor windows, and the light in the sunroom, which had been green yesterday, was now the color of the inside of a tin. Elena was standing at the foot of the stairs with a clipboard and a face gone iron, telling a young man in a black jacket where to place himself and where to keep his eyes. Alessandro found Sophia at the landing. He did not raise his voice. "Sophia, my office. Please." She followed him. Emma came with her, because Emma was not being put down for anyone. He closed the door and turned to face her, and his voice was very controlled and very quiet in the way that only a certain kind of man's voice gets when it is holding on. "Sophia," he said, "this is the moment for you to leave. Sal will drive you to Josephine's within the hour. 2 men on the property with her, 2 more on you, indefinitely. I pay for all of it, for as long as you need. Please, please go." Sophia looked past his shoulder, through the open door, across the hall. Emma had been set down beside Elena on the great rug in the front room where a chessboard sat unused. Elena had put a small cushion beside her and was showing her, patient, how the horse moved. Emma was not paying attention to the horse. Emma was looking at Sophia through the doorway, over Elena's shoulder, with the same small counting eyes she had used at the diner on the sugar packets. She was not begging. She was not asking. She was simply watching to see what Sophia was going to choose, so she would know what kind of world she was living in from now on. Sophia answered Alessandro without turning her head. "I stay." He did not argue. He gave her a new phone with an encrypted line. He gave her a small handgun for the drawer of the desk in her room, which she did not know how to fire, and which they both understood she would not fire, but which he needed her to know was there. He told her the layout of the safe rooms. He told her the words that would bring men to any door in the house within 90 seconds. That night, Elena disappeared. She was not in her room. She was not in the pantry. She was not at the kitchen door where she smoked 1 cigarette a day, and only one. The house phone went unanswered on the extension in her room, and her mobile rang once to voicemail, and then went dead. Dante had the grounds swept by torchlight before Alessandro finished dressing. They found her at the servants' entrance at the back of the east wing at 11:40. Elena had been beaten, her left arm broken clean, her lips split, one eye already blackening. She was still conscious. She had crawled the last 15 feet along the gravel back toward the door. Sophia got to her first. She got down on her knees in her nightgown on the crushed stone and lifted Elena's head into her lap and pressed the corner of her own cardigan to the split lip. Elena's good hand came up and gripped Sophia's wrist. Her voice came out of her in a whisper Sophia had to lean to catch. "They knew the way in," Elena said. "Someone inside is showing them." Alessandro understood before Elena had finished the second sentence. Victor Romano was not out there alone. There was at least one more. And Alessandro Moretti, who prided himself on knowing every man who walked under his roof, did not know which one. The following Tuesday, Alessandro had to leave the house. He had put off the meeting for 6 days. He could not put it off a 7th. 3 neutral families had agreed to sit at a table with him at a hotel 2 hours out on the coast road, in a private room booked under a name that belonged to none of them. And if he did not come, the war he had been keeping between himself and Conti was going to open up along 4 other borders before Friday. He could not bring Emma. The other families had made that clear. Children did not sit at that kind of table, and neither did the women who kept them. He left at 8 in the morning, in the black sedan, with Sal at the wheel. Dante stayed behind at the house, with 4 men he had known since basic. The gate was locked. The steel shutters were down on every ground floor window. The staff had been sent home for the day except Elena, who was still in the guest wing with her arm in a sling and would not be sent anywhere. There were 2 men on the front pillar, 2 men on the rear pillar, 2 more roving the interior corridors. Sophia's new phone was on the kitchen counter, on speaker, with Dante's line kept open. Sophia and Emma had breakfast in the sunroom because Sophia had decided they were going to keep to the shape of a normal morning. Emma had a coloring book open on the table. She was working carefully with a red pencil on the outline of the heron they had seen at the fountain, keeping just inside the line, the small pink tip of her tongue at the corner of her mouth. Over the last few days she had begun to give Sophia words the way one gives coins across a counter, one at a time, small denominations, careful of what she had left in her hand. "Red," Emma said, holding the pencil up, meaning she was done with it and wanted the next one. "More," she said, an hour later, meaning she wanted another one of the small crescent butter cookies Elena had made yesterday because she thought sugar might be medicine. "Sophia," that one Emma had said with her whole voice, on a rising note, a small, clear bell of a word that meant nothing except "you are still here, aren't you?" "I'm here, button, right here." At 10:45, the explosion at the south gate rearranged the morning. It came in through the glass first, a pressure change, a low, deep concussion. Sophia felt against her sternum before her ears caught up to it, and then the tall panes of the sunroom flexed and did not break, and every glass on the table jumped, and the small red pencil rolled off the edge and did not hit the tile because Sophia had come up out of her chair with Emma already in her arms before it could. She heard Dante's voice in the phone in the same moment. "Southgate. Get her up. 3rd floor safe room. Now." Sophia went. She did not run. Running with a 6-year-old on your hip is how you fall down a flight of stairs. She walked fast and even along the wall, her free hand skimming the plaster. Emma pressed to her shoulder with the child's small arms locked tight around her neck and the loose end of her white summer bow trailing down Sophia's back. Behind her, 1 story below, gunfire opened up in short controlled bursts, and Dante's voice came again in the phone against her collarbone. 3 at the east door. I've got them. Keep moving." Sophia took the first flight of stairs. She could hear Emma breathing, quick, 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 small hummingbird breaths against her neck. "Look at me," Sophia whispered, at the landing. "Not down there. Look at me. Right here. I've got you." She took the second flight. She was 3 doors from the safe room at the far end of the 3rd floor when the shape stepped out of the alcove at the end of the corridor. He had his gun already up. Frank Gallo. She had seen him in the front hall for 3 weeks. He had come on with the household security in April, cleared by Alessandro's own vetting, brought in by Victor Romano personally, and he had a wife somewhere and a nephew he sent photographs of on his phone. He had held the door for Sophia on Tuesday. He was holding it now against the far wall of the corridor with his weight braced, the muzzle level, and there was no boardroom in his face because there had never been one. Sophia stopped. She lowered Emma to the runner behind her, slow, very slow, so the movement did not startle the muzzle. She kept one hand on Emma's small back and held it there so the child would not step out from behind her hip. "Don't shoot," she said. "Don't shoot. We'll come with you." Frank Gallo smiled. It was almost apologetic. "I know," he said. That was the plan. They took her down the back service stairs, both of them, with Frank's man behind her and Frank's hand at the collar of her cardigan. In the gravel service yard behind the kitchen, a gray panel truck was waiting with its side door open and its engine running. There was no lettering on the side. There was tape over the plate. 2 more men were inside. They lifted Emma into it first, and then Sophia after her, and rolled the door down, and the light went out. The truck moved. Sophia found Emma in the dark by her hand. She got them both into the corner farthest from the door. She wrapped her whole body around the child's small one and pressed her mouth to the top of Emma's head, where the loose bow had come completely undone. "Look at me," she whispered, though there was no light to look by. "Look at me. I'm here. I'm going to be here. You do not look at anybody else. You look at me." She could not tell whether Emma nodded. She could feel Emma's small fist closed in the fabric at her waist. That was answer enough. The truck turned south, 2 hours away. In a private conference room at a hotel on the coast road, Alessandro Moretti was mid-sentence when his phone lit up on the linen tablecloth beside his water glass. The message from Dante was 3 words. They took Emma. Alessandro set the phone down, face up. Across the table, the head of the Mancini family, who had watched 3 funerals of his own children in his time, and knew the color of it when he saw it, went still. Alessandro stood. He did not say goodbye to the men at the table. He did not gather the papers he had brought. He walked out of the private room and down the carpeted corridor and out into the parking lot, and his hands, which had held steady through every negotiation of his life and through the worst afternoon of 11 months ago, were shaking. The truck stopped. The door rolled up on a shuttered loading bay Sophia did not recognize, and Frank Gallo walked them down a set of concrete stairs into the guts of a building that had not been used for anything above the surface in a long time. The cellar was concrete on all 6 sides. A single bulb hung from a cord in the ceiling and pulled the shadows into corners. There was a thin mattress on the floor along the far wall, damp at one edge where the concrete had been sweating, and a metal bucket in the far corner, and nothing else. There was no window. The door was steel. Frank pushed it closed behind them, and Sophia heard the bolt slide, and the sound of it landing was a small final one. Emma was shaking. Not sobbing. Shaking. That fine tremor that runs through a small body when the fear has gone past what the body can hold and started spilling into the muscle. Sophia sat down on the mattress with her back to the concrete and pulled Emma into her lap. She peeled off her own cardigan, still warm from the sunroom, and wrapped it around the child's shoulders twice. She found the undone bow trailing down the child's back and gathered it up in her fingers and retied it in the dim light bigger loops. Summer style, the way she had tied it in the diner and again on the drive out and again in the corridor upstairs before any of this had gone wrong. There, better than new. Sophia. Emma's voice was small and cracked. "I want Mama. Your Mama's here. Your Mama's always been here. Tell me." Tell me the way she laughs on the phone. How does the laugh go? Emma's tremor slowed a fraction. In small sentences, the way she had been giving Sophia words for a week now, she began. She burned toast on Saturdays. Every Saturday. On purpose, Emma thought, because she pretended to be surprised every time. She read The Velveteen Rabbit using a different voice for the rabbit and the horse and the boy, and the horse's voice was a very slow one, and it made Emma laugh so hard she got hiccups. Her hair smelled like the shampoo in the green bottle, and also a little like the sun. She said bunny instead of sweetheart. She had a chip in one of her front teeth from falling off a bicycle when she was 12, and it was Emma's favorite thing about her mother's whole face. Sophia listened. She did not correct anything. She did not compare anything. She did not offer her a Sophia-sized version of any of it. She just sat and let the child give her back her mother a piece at a time. In a concrete room with a bulb on a cord, Emma ran out of pieces. She was quiet for a while. Then she looked up. "Have you ever lost somebody you loved?" Sophia held very still. There is a moment in a person's life when the story they have been holding under their tongue for years takes a full breath and asks whether it is ready to come out. Sophia felt it move up in her throat, and she did not know, right up until the second the first word arrived, whether she was going to let it. "His name was Ethan," she said. "He was her little brother, 10 years old. Their parents worked nights that year, both of them, at the plant on the far side of the county. Sophia had been 18. She had had her license 3 months. It had been raining that evening, and Ethan had wanted ice cream from the place on Route 6 because they had rocky road and a waffle cone with sprinkles, and Sophia had said yes because at 18 you say yes to a 10-year-old brother about ice cream even in the rain. She had been going too fast. She had been going only a little too fast, and only for a moment, and only around one curve where the pavement went slick under water she had not seen. The car had left the road at 40. It had hit a tree. She had lived. Ethan had not. Emma had stopped counting her fingers. Her small eyes had gone wide, wider than Sophia had seen them yet in the whole week she had known her. Sophia went on because if she stopped, she would not be able to start again. "I stopped driving for 6 years. I left the city. I stopped talking to my mother and father because they could not look at me and not see him. I went to work in a diner on a road where nobody knew my face, and I made myself a rule. Her voice broke. Once, on the word rule, she let it break. Nobody in this concrete room was going to be graded on it. The rule was, don't ever let anyone matter to you again. Because if you let them matter, you will kill them. That is what mattering does, if you're me. Emma reached up. Her small hand, sticky still with butter from breakfast, came up and pressed against Sophia's cheek and dragged a tear off it with her thumb the way she had seen someone, somewhere, do for a face that mattered. You didn't kill Ethan, she said. The rain killed Ethan. You were just in the car. Something in Sophia broke. Not sideways, not partway, completely. 11 years of a held thing gave out at once, quietly, and Sophia folded down over the child in her lap and cried, the silent kind of crying that comes out of a person only after they have finally been told, by someone who has no earthly reason to know, the one true sentence they have needed for a decade. Emma patted her shoulder. She did it the way a very small mother pats a very large child. Steady, rhythmic, certain. Sometimes the child does the mothering, because the mother has been holding it in for too long. Emma fell asleep in her lap. Sophia did not sleep. She sat with her back against the sweating concrete and her arms locked around the small body in her cardigan. And she watched the steel door, and she listened for what she was not going to admit yet she was listening for. 90 miles away, in a courtyard behind the estate, Alessandro Moretti's men were pulling on plates and checking magazines and climbing into 3 unmarked vehicles that were not going to stay unmarked much longer. 30 minutes after that, the bolt in the concrete cellar slid back. The steel door opened. Victor Romano stepped through, smiling, the way he had smiled in a diner and at a breakfast table and at a Sunday lunch, and behind him, thicker in the shoulders and slower in the eyes, came Vittorio Conti. Alessandro reached the estate at 12:15. Sal drove the 2 hours back from the coast in an hour and 40, and neither of them said a word for any of it. Dante was on his feet in the front hall when Alessandro walked through the door. His shoulder was wrapped and taped, and the sling had been abandoned somewhere along the way. His face was the color of old paper. He had been organizing the search since 10:52, which was the timestamp on the traffic camera at the county line, where a gray panel truck with a taped-over plate had gone south on Route 44. 9 minutes after the explosion at the south gate, 6 minutes after the last shots had died in the corridor upstairs. Frank Gallo had walked Emma and Sophia out of the estate at 10:49, and by 10:52 the truck had cleared the county line. Alessandro said one word. Where? Dante spread a map on the console table in the front hall. He put a finger on the traffic camera. He drew the finger south along the highway to the exit for the old container yard. He tapped once. The south warehouse. The one at the end of the disused pier, half fallen in on itself on the water side. A chain-link fence around it that had grown into the weeds. The one that had gone off the family's inventory 3 years ago as unmaintained. Alessandro looked at the finger on the map, and for a long second he did not say anything at all, because it was the same warehouse. The same lot Kara had filmed from the passenger seat of her own car 11 months and 3 weeks ago, with the camera braced against the dashboard, angled up through the windshield at a man in a dark coat crossing to meet another man in a dark coat. The place where his wife's death had begun was going to be the place where his revenge ended. There are men who die in one moment, and men who die in stages. Alessandro Moretti had already died in 3 stages: the day Kara did not come home, the day he saw Victor in his wife's video, and the day the gray truck left the estate with his daughter, and he was ready to bring the rest of the world down with him if a 4th stage was coming. He gave the orders in a voice none of them had heard him use before. 12 men, full plates, long guns and sidearms, 2 vehicles for the primary team, 1 for the second, Dante on the second team on the rear entrance, wounded shoulder or no, because Dante had been in 15 buildings like this one in his life, and would go in a 16th. 2 lookouts on the water side, no radio sin clear, fire suppression on standby half a mile out for whatever the building did when the smoke came. He gave the last order last, and slowly, Emma and Sophia come out first. Wound to disable, you do not shoot to kill unless it is you or him. Victor Romano and Vittorio Conti are mine. Nobody puts a hand on them. Nobody puts a bullet in them. That belongs to me. Nobody argued. On the drive, in the back of the lead vehicle with the road ticking away under the wheels, Alessandro reached under his shirt and closed his fist around the silver chain against his sternum. The gold ring was warm from his own body. He did not know he was praying until he had already been doing it. It was the first prayer he had said in 11 months. It was not for himself. The warehouse came up over the top of the rise at 2:45 in the afternoon, framed against the water, and the light on the corrugated tin roof was the flat gold of a July afternoon that did not know or care what was going on underneath it. The teams peeled off 200 yards out. Half went wide left, along the pier. Half went right, through the weeds along the fence. Alessandro walked in through the front door on his own team's line and did not slow down at the threshold. The shooting started before he had cleared the first bay. A round tore across the front of his vest and did not stop him. A second one caught him along the ribs on the right side and grooved the flesh under his sleeve, and he did not slow down for that either. He walked through the front bay of a warehouse he had not seen the inside of since he was a young man learning his trade. And he took corners the way he had been taught to take corners, and men fell in front of his line, and he did not look at their faces. At the stairwell to the cellar, Dante's team met him from the waterside. Dante put down 2 of Conti's men on the landing without breaking his stride. A third came around the corner and Dante hit him in the throat with the muzzle of his rifle and stepped past. Below them, at the bottom of the stairs, was a steel door. Inside the concrete cellar, Sophia heard the gunfire coming closer. She heard it move through the ceiling above them and then through the wall behind them, and she felt the small tremors travel down through the concrete into the mattress where she was sitting with her back braced and Emma pressed against her chest. She held Emma tighter. Somebody was not going to walk out of this building. She was old enough to have understood that from the moment the truck door had rolled up on this room, and she prayed, very quietly, without moving her lips, that it was not going to be the child in her arms. The steel door came off the hinges. The bolt that had felt so final an hour ago blew inward in a single blast from a breaching charge, and the door lifted and fell, and Alessandro Moretti stepped into the concrete cellar of his own dead warehouse with a rifle raised at his shoulder and a hairline of blood along his ribs. He did not fire. He did not fire because Victor Romano was standing at the far wall with Emma pressed against his chest as a shield, and Victor's pistol was set against her temple, and the small, pale side of Emma's head was the only thing between the muzzle and the wall behind her. Vittorio Conti was not in the room. Conti had heard the first shots 20 minutes ago and gone out the back door of the building, the way men like Conti always go out the back, because loyalty for men like Conti was a thing you sold to whoever kept you alive one more afternoon. Alessandro lowered the rifle. Slowly, all the way. He set it on the concrete at his feet. Then he took one step forward. Victor smiled. He had the same easy smile he had brought to breakfast 3 days ago at Pharaoh's. He had the smile he had carried into 15 years of Sunday lunches. He had the smile he had been born with, and he had never had to work at it a day in his life. Put it down. Boss, Victor said. Or the girl goes first, same way her mother did. Alessandro did not answer. You knew, didn't you? Victor said. His voice was almost conversational. His finger did not move on the trigger. That whole breakfast on Friday, that whole thing about the police band, you already knew. I have to say, I have to give it to you. You had me thinking I had another week. The gun did not move from Emma's temple. Your wife found out 3 weeks before it happened, Victor said. She was going to bring you the whole thing that same night. From the pool. I cut her brake line that morning in the parking lot while she was in the water teaching a 9-year-old to float. The rain was just a bonus. That was luck. Alessandro did not speak. He did not move his face. He did not blink. Tomorrow, Victor went on, his voice going lighter, almost tender, as though telling a story to a child. Tomorrow morning, they will find you here with a bullet through your head, and the little Moretti girl next to you, and me, Vittorio Conti's new right hand. And the whole family will come to my table for orders by lunchtime. It is very clean. It is a small mercy. 20 years of you, boss. And it comes down to a Tuesday afternoon at a place your father used to own. He shifted the pistol. He shifted it away from Emma's temple. He swung the muzzle out to arm's length, and he angled it down at the small chest of a 6-year-old girl. He was going to shoot her first, so that Alessandro could see it. Sophia had counted every second since the door had come off. She had backed into the darkest corner of the cellar the moment Victor turned toward Alessandro, and she had measured, in the small, precise way of a woman who had once measured the distance between a spinning car and a tree in the rain, the exact number of steps between her body and the child's. 3. She made 3 steps. She hit Emma with her hip and her shoulder both, at the same time, and drove the small body sideways and down onto the concrete out of the line of the muzzle. And she took the bullet where Emma had been standing, in her own belly, just under the right side of her ribs. She went down on top of the child. The blood came fast. It spread out under her on the gray concrete in a broad, dark shape, the way ink spreads on paper. Emma screamed. It was a long scream, and it was not a 6-year-old scream. It was older than that. It was the sound of something inside her that had been waiting to make a noise like that for the whole 11 months of her life since her mother had gone out to a swimming pool and not come back. And in that same second, the second Sophia hit the floor, and Emma opened her mouth, everything Alessandro Moretti had been holding since the day of the accident, and the day of the video, and the day of the gray truck, went at the same time. Time slowed the way it slows for people who cannot afford to feel it slow. Alessandro picked the rifle up off the concrete without breaking the movement of his hand. He fired once. The round took Victor Romano through the right hand at the base of the pistol grip. The pistol dropped. Victor made a small surprised noise, like a man who had missed a step in the dark. Alessandro crossed the floor. He kicked the fallen pistol into the far corner. He hit Victor in the face with the flat of his left hand. Hard. Once. And Victor went down onto the concrete on his back like a sack of grain. Then Alessandro went to his knees beside Sophia. His shirt had caught, somewhere in the movement, on the fine silver chain against his sternum, and the chain gave. It broke clean, with the small, sharp sound a fine chain makes when it finally lets go. And the gold ring Kara had worn on the day she married him came free and fell. It rolled once on the concrete. It rolled across the spreading dark under Sophia's hip, and came to rest in the blood at the small hollow of her hand. Sophia's eyes were still open. Her voice was very soft. "Emma," she said, "take her out. Don't let her see any more of this." Alessandro reached down. He picked the ring up out of her own blood. He did not put it back around his neck. He turned Sophia's hand up on the concrete, and he laid the ring in the center of her open palm, and he closed her fingers around it, one by one, gentle in the way a man is gentle only once or twice in his life. "You keep it," he said. "You saved my daughter. She would want you to keep it." Dante was there. Dante got his good arm under Sophia and lifted her clear of the concrete without disturbing the shape of her hip, and started up the stairs with her. And one of the men from the second team scooped Emma off the floor and carried her up behind them, with her small face pressed into his neck, and the loose end of her summer bow trailing over his elbow. The cellar emptied. It left Alessandro Moretti and Victor Romano, and the space between them. Alessandro reached inside his suit jacket. He drew out the Beretta that had been in his wife's desk drawer for 11 months, unfired, waiting for him without his ever having known it was waiting. "Kara trusted you," he said, very quietly. "I trusted you for 15 years. You stood at my wedding. You held Emma when she was 3 years old. You ate at my mother's table." Victor's face was gray. He was still holding the bleeding right hand against his chest with his left. "Money, boss," he said. "That was all. It was only ever money. There is a kind of justice that cannot be written down and cannot be spoken, only exchanged in a room between two men and a woman who is no longer breathing. One shot, clean, level, the way Kara would have wanted it." Alessandro walked out of the cellar. He came up into the loading bay and out through the front of the building into the late afternoon, and the light on the water was the flat gold color a July afternoon turns when it is turning toward evening, and the pier smelled of tar and salt and gun smoke. Vittorio Conti was face down on the gravel at the far end of the yard. Dante's men had put him there when he had tried, in the end, to go out the back door. The ambulances were already at the fence line. Alessandro climbed into the back of the first one and sat down on the bench beside the stretcher. He took Sophia's other hand, not the one with the ring in it, the other one. Emma was crouched at the foot of the stretcher with the loose summer bow now clutched in both her small fists, and she did not let go of the fabric of Sophia's cardigan the whole way to the hospital. Alessandro did not feel like a man who had won anything. He felt like a man who had been carrying weight for 11 months and had put none of it down. The doctors met them at the ambulance bay. The bullet had missed the organs. It had gone through the muscle and out the far side, and it had done work on the way through, but it had not killed her. It was not going to kill her. It was, however, going to take surgery, and it was going to take it now. They wheeled her through the double doors and left Alessandro on the wrong side of them. He stood in the corridor in his ruined suit, with his daughter pressed against his hip and his wife's blood dried along the sleeve where he had picked her ring up out of it, and he did the one thing he had not done in 11 months. He prayed. Sophia woke on the third day. The room was full of afternoon light. There was a small warm weight on her hand, and it took her a moment to understand that it was another hand, and that the hand belonged to Emma Moretti, who was asleep with her cheek pressed against Sophia's wrist and her hair coming loose from a bow that someone had retied clumsily but tied all the same. The whole room smelled of the bakery box on the windowsill that Josephine May had driven 40 minutes to deliver and that nobody had opened yet. Emma had not left the room in 3 days. She had told the whole 3 days to Sophia's unconscious face, the story of the heron, and the story of the button pancakes, and the story of the pink sugar packet, and the story of the ambulance ride, and the promise, over and over, that Sophia was still breathing, that Sophia was still breathing, that Sophia was still breathing. Sophia turned her head half an inch. "Sophia," Emma's small voice, low, careful, "You're breathing. You're breathing." Sophia lifted her free hand and touched the child's cheek with 2 fingers, because that was all she had strength for. And she smiled. And Emma folded her small body down over Sophia's arm and did not cry, and did not cry, and Alessandro Moretti stepped through the door of the room and saw them like that, and stopped in the frame for a long moment before he came the rest of the way in. He had not shaved in 3 days. He had not changed his shirt in 3. His hand went, when he sat down on the far side of the bed, to Sophia's other hand, the hand with the ring in it, and he did not say anything at all, because there was nothing that needed saying between them that had not been said in the ambulance already. On the 4th morning, Sophia woke to something small and cool on the pillow beside her face. The silver chain, the gold ring on it. Alessandro had put it there while she slept. Sophia lifted it in her fingers. The ring was small and plain, and slightly worn on the inside, where it had rested against Cara Moretti's finger for the 8 years of her marriage. Sophia turned it. Inside the band, in a small hand-cut engraving that had gone soft with time, were 4 letters and 1 word, C and A sempre. Alessandro came into the room. Sophia held the chain out to him on the flat of her hand. She reached up, slowly, painfully, and closed his fingers around it, the way he had closed hers around it in a cellar 3 days ago. That belongs to her, Sophia said. It will always belong to her. I don't replace anyone. I did not give it to you to replace anyone, Alessandro said. I gave it to you because she would have wanted you to have something of hers, after you saved our daughter. Sophia shook her head, very slightly. Because a bigger movement hurt. You keep it. You lend it to me if I ever need it. Not to keep. He smiled, small, tired, true, and put the chain back around his neck. She was in the hospital 4 weeks. Josephine May drove out every Sunday with button pancakes wrapped in wax paper for Emma. Elena came back to work with her arm still in a cast and looked at Sophia in a different way now. The way one woman looks at another once they have both been in the same building on the same afternoon and only one of them was hit. Dante healed at his sister's house in the country. Vittoria Moretti came to the hospital once, and only once. She wore black. She brought white lilies. She sat in the chair in the corner for a full hour without speaking, and before she left, she put her hand on Sophia's shoulder and said, very quietly, Cara would have liked you, Miss Carter. Then she walked out without turning around. Sophia understood. That was the closest thing to acceptance a woman like Vittoria Hale Moretti was ever going to hand across a room, and it had been handed all the way. Back at the estate, the west wing door was open. It stayed open. Cara's things were still in the room, no longer hidden, and the framed photograph of the laughing woman on the beach stood upright on Emma's nightstand, and beside it now was a smaller frame with a printout of Cara's 40 seconds turned into a sound wave, so Emma could see her mother's voice as well as hear it. October came. The first yellow leaves fell into the water of the fountain. Emma was 7 now. She was wearing the frog boots Sophia had found in a closet the first week, and her hair was tied back with the same white summer bow. Alessandro led Sophia out to the lawn in front of the fountain one afternoon. He was in a gray suit with no tie, his collar open. The silver chain with Cara's ring lived now in a small wooden box on Emma's shelf, where the child could take it down when she needed it. Sophia. Alessandro's voice was steady in the way it had been the day he had walked into a diner. I have lived 38 years thinking I understood everything about losing people I love. Then you walked into a diner and told my daughter that sad is a winter thing. You did not just save Emma. You saved me from the man I had become in the 11 months after Cara died. Cara would have liked you. She would have told me I was a fool if I let you go. Sophia opened her mouth. Emma stepped in front of her. She held out, from behind her back, not a ring but a single pink sugar packet. The corners a little bent from having been carried around a garden. Mama told me in a dream, Emma said. Mama said you had to pick the pink one first. Mama saw you do it at the diner. Sophia put her hand over her mouth. Alessandro went down on one knee on the grass with the small velvet box in his hand, a new ring. Not Cara's. Small and gold with a single pale stone, chosen for the woman standing in front of him and not for anyone else. Marry me. Not to be Emma's mother. She has a mother. Not to replace anyone. Just to be yourself. In this house. With us. For as long as we get. Sophia did not stand. She sat down on the grass at Emma's eye level. She took the pink packet out of the child's fingers and laid it, gently, in the palm of Alessandro Moretti's open hand beside the ring. Yes, she said. If your daughter hands me a pink sugar packet, I cannot say no. The 3 of them held each other on the grass beside the fountain. A heron passed overhead, or one of its cousins, and did not stop. In the framed photograph on the nightstand beside Emma's bed that night, Cara Moretti still stood upright, still laughing in the sun. Beside her now was a new frame. 3 people, Autumn, laughing. Emma in the center, one small hand in each of the 2 larger hands on either side of her. There are people we love and lose, and there are people we love and keep by letting them be remembered. Memory that is not buried does not kill us, it saves us. 40 seconds of a mother's voice, if it is allowed to play, will heal the child. If it is locked away, it will kill her a second time. The bravest thing a person can do is not, always, to forget. It is to dare to remember well. Do you have someone you have stopped speaking about because it hurt too much? A mother, a brother, a friend, a child. Write their name in the comments. Tell me one beautiful thing you remember about them. And let me know what city you are listening from. I want to know where this story found you tonight. If this story reached you, tap subscribe, leave a like, and share it with the one person you think needs to hear it tonight.